go. Hi, this is John Brubaker of Professional Resume Plus and Black Belt Job Search. And my focus over the next couple of minutes is to give you a little bit more insight on what we call the outside game of Black Belt Job Search. What I mean by that is, think of job search as two components. There's an outside game, which is how you're dealing with the outside world. Your resumes, your cover letters, your search strategies, your LinkedIn presence, your follow-up, your systems, and your methods. How you're dealing with the outside world. And then there's an inside game, which is the inner game of how you're dealing with yourself and your fears. The focus of this is to talk a little bit about that outside game. Now, let me get into a little bit more detail about the nature of the challenge that you're facing and the solution as well. Talked about this on the front of this site. This is fascinating time to be looking for a job because on the one hand, it is the most fruitful time of the 23 years I've been in this business to find a fantastic job. Technology is exploding. Entrepreneurial activity is taking place. Innovation is starting all over. As a matter of fact, if you read Napoleon Hill's great book, Think and Grow Rich, which came out in 1937, you'll see some of the great benefits that came to the country from coming out of the Depression. If you read a little bit, you're going to find that some of the greatest companies were made during recessions. So sometimes these recessions can actually be very, very positive. So there's all this opportunity out there, and yet at the same time, it is the most challenging time to be looking for a job, not as much because of the economy, but mostly because of the technology. What I have seen in the last several months is people that are well-meaning, a lot of times people in their 40s and 50s, top earners in many cases, and this is the tricky part, that have pretty good resumes and cover letters to start with, and yet they are shut out of the system. They're not getting interviews at all. Why is this and how you can solve it? Let me just explain what you're going up against. So let's get inside the corporation and talk about this for a second. If you look at our Black Belt webinars, this is given in some detail. But here's the deal. Imagine you're going after a corporate job. You see a big corporate job up on the internet. Let's talk about what goes on behind that. First of all, at the moment that that job got up online, there were little electronic pulses that went out all over the place to people that have these things called search agents that are set up to make them aware of jobs. Back in the day, it used to be, when I worked in an HR department, we used to get 35 or 40 resumes if we were lucky over a period of 2 weeks. Now some of these corporations are getting dozens and dozens within an hour. And they're often dealing with hundreds of people that are in what we call that initial funnel. So there's this electronic funnel. So the first thing that we're going to go up against is the electronic screening system. Now that's called in the business applicant tracking system. It's actually an applicant screening system. And as John Madigan, one of my good friends, was a former senior vice president of HR at, I believe, the Hartford Insurance, said, we are not looking to recruit, we're looking to exclude at that part of the game. So they're looking for reasons and things to kick you out of the system. So right there, you're talking about, let's just say 250 people are going to get screened down to about 40 or 50 people. About 80% get knocked out right there. So then you've got this multi-stage process. Now let me talk about the next person in this, and that is the gatekeeper HR person. We're talking about a large corporation. You've got a gatekeeper HR person, probably somebody in their 20s, mid to late 20s, a lot of them women, very intelligent, well-educated, they have a good grade point average, they've got all the HR screening in the world, but they really do not have a very good grasp of reading a resume of what would make an actual good candidate for that job. Again, they're in screening mode. They're looking for reasons to exclude, they're not looking for reasons to recruit. So that's your number two obstacle. Then you've got this multi-stage process which will involve interviews and second interviews and so forth. And in the end of it, you've got the final decision. Think about like the Olympics, the medal round of the Olympics, 3 or 4 candidates who are going to sit in front of the decision maker, the person they're probably going to report to, and they're going to make the final decision. And this all takes a period of a while. Also, if you go up and see the webinars that we have about this, you'll see many of these recruiters, their job, they're not working with one job at a time. They're working with 30 or 40 jobs at a time. So that's the environment that you're dealing with. So how do you defeat that environment? Let me briefly explain the three-tier strategy that we have. One of them is tactical. This is the short-term strategy. Think about this as the 30-day strategy. If you came to me and you said, I really need to get a job in 30 days and I want to go full force on all the openings that I'm available or arguable for, this is the tactical method. And that is that we're going to take the existing resume that you have and the cover letter that you have and show you how to break down the words that are in the ad and also the stuff that's on the company's blog and become a chameleon. We're going to show how to transform some of the verbiage from your terms into their terms. Now, this may seem very silly to you, but it just is an example. I had a client who we had operational management as one of his skill sets in the skills part of the resume. And we saw this ad, saw the company, and they kept using the term over and over, operational excellence. So you say, well, now that's so silly. Yes, it is. But that is how you beat the system. So we're going to show you exactly how to spend an hour or two and really customize and optimize that system. That's a strategy. It's a very key strategy. The key point on this is that helps you with the first two layers of this. It helps you get past the software screener because guess what? The terminology that they're using in their job description and on their website is probably the terminology they've got programmed in that exclusionary thing, that they're looking for people that sound like them. They're looking for people that match them. You're becoming a chameleon. Also the gatekeeper. If the gatekeeper sits there and reads the resume and says to themselves, sounds like one of our people, that's what you want. A key last point is we're going to make sure to title right at the top of the resume whatever the job title is that they have. That is a huge factor. So these are just some free tips on this, okay? So that's number one. So the next level is, in addition to that, we're not going to stop there. We're then going to go up on LinkedIn. We're going to try to find out who the person is that's making the decision. And what we're trying to do is in that 30-day period or whatever amount of time it is, trying to use your spheres of influence to get somebody that knows that final decision maker to say, you know what, I know John Barnett is interviewing for this. He's not a personal friend of mine, but I know somebody who knows him really well, says he's an absolutely outstanding. That is the way these things get made. So that's the second thing on the tactics. And the third thing is we're going to do something that's going to blow their mind. You're going to call up and find out the name of the person handling the search and their mail code if it's a corporation. You're going to send them a letter in the mail. Can you imagine that? A letter in the mail in 9x12 envelope. When is the last time you got a personal letter at your office? And this is a technique that I have used very successfully with top executives, cold calling C-level, CEO type people of Fortune 1000 companies and getting lots of jobs this way. So this is a system that's on the front end. So I'm just going to quickly go through these other two. Second tier is working with the recruiters and headhunters. I want you to think about the headhunters in this way. They're somewhat like a gatekeeper, but when a company hires them, they are hiring them to act as a gatekeeper. Screen out the people we don't want, but get us the people we want. And that person is motivated, if you're the right candidate, is motivated to be able to refer you to, and so they may be the factor that gets you the job. If they know the decision maker, if they're being brought in on the search, they are going to be, so we have to figure out a strategy to sell them and to get to them. Well, guess what? It just so happens this is an area that I have a lot of expertise in. We're going to be able to take a look at your background, craft the right letter, craft the right number of resumes, because it might be one or two samples, and we're going to have the ability to send, you're going to send them a personal email with the resumes attached and really zero in on that. So that's the strategy there. Now there's a third strategy, which is the strategic level of this. And that is to say, let's imagine that plan A and plan B doesn't work at all. And we are in a completely different world. How are we going to deal with that? It's a very interesting new technique. And I'm going to credit Greg Wales of BeFoundFast.com. I'm a student. I'm in his Platinum Coaching Program. This guy is the #1 expert in the world on advanced LinkedIn search techniques. And he came up with this, and it's a brilliant, brilliant idea. And that is that we're going to sit down we're going to help you figure out what's the universe of companies that you're interested in working with? Companies that might be, we're not looking for whether they have openings or not, companies. And then we're going to show you a multi-tiered way, doesn't happen overnight, happens over about a 30 to 45 day period, where you're going to position yourself as an ideal candidate without any jobs being offered. Now, Greg Wells says that if you do that in a universe in which there are 200 jobs, possible jobs, so for example, if you're looking for a customer service rep position and you've got, let's just say, 50 companies that have an average of 4 reps, that's 200 jobs. If you're looking for a controller or CFO position, might be 100 companies because they might have 2 jobs. We're going to show you how you're going to position yourself with those key hiring managers through LinkedIn and through some other value-added methods so that when the new position comes up, guess what? You're the one that beat the system. You're the one that's at the head of that line. You're on that short list that they started with, and all the other people are going to have to deal with the funnel issue. This is a brilliant strategy. I give Greg Wells 100% credit, but I will tell you this fits in beautifully with what I'm able to do. So those are the 3 methods of the outside game of job search.